Welcome to the Autism ADHD podcast. It's the place to be for neurodiversity-affirming parents and professionals. I'm your host, Holly Blanc-Moses, the mom neurodivergent therapist. Here we chat about emotional regulation, mental health, social support, executive functioning, learning, and more, all aimed at empowering us to support kids and teens with compassion and understanding. I'm thrilled that you joined me today, and I've got some pretty exciting news to share with you. For those rock star therapists listening right now, I've created continuing education training that is tailor-made for you. Take a deep dive into cutting-edge strategies that you can start using today. The CEs you've wanted for so long are finally here. Go to hollyblancmoses.com/CE training and sign up. You are going to love it. The link is also available in the show notes. Now, if you are a parent or educator listening and you know a therapist or a psychologist that is passionate about supporting kids and teens, I greatly appreciate it if you could pass on this great news. Thanks so much again for your support, and let's get started. Welcome to the Autism ADHD podcast. I am thrilled you joined me today. And before we get started, I want to give a shout out to CH75 for taking the time to give a 5-star review. And they write, always relatable. What I love most about this podcast is that I can scroll through and usually find an episode quickly that speaks to me, educates me, and normalizes my kid. My daughter is 11 and diagnosed this year with autism and ADHD. She also struggles with sensory processing disorder and anxiety. I was just diagnosed at 49 with ADHD. Holly always hits the nail on the head with how I'm feeling and reminds me to be patient with my daughter and with myself. I'm so thankful that you're finding the podcast helpful. It means the world to me to read a review, because sometimes that is actually what keeps me going with the podcast, is knowing that there are others listening out there that are being helped by the information. And thank you to all of you who have taken the time to give the podcast a 5-star review. It helps us reach more people so we can help them too. Now, today is a big topic. And that is motivation, or what looks like the lack of it. And if you've ever said, or even just thought, why won't they just do it? They're just not trying hard enough. If they tried, they can do it. If you've ever thought about any of that, which I know I have, this episode is for you. Because what I'm going to share today will completely change how you understand what's really happening when a neurodivergent child seems unmotivated. Because here's the truth, motivation isn't about willpower. It's not about caring. Motivation is not about character. It's about wiring. And when we understand how executive functioning and motivation work together and how they can break down, we stop seeing neurodivergent kids as lazy or defiant, and we start seeing what they actually need to succeed. First, I want to talk about what motivation actually is. If I was to do an experiment and line up 5 people, I'd ask them, give me the definition of motivation. I'm probably going to get 5 different answers. It's hard to define But cognitively speaking, motivation is the mental process that initiates, directs, and sustains goal oriented behavior. It's how the brain decides, is this important? Is this interesting? Is it worth the effort? And then this is the crucial part, it's the cognitive ability to translate that intention into action. Think about it this way, motivation isn't just about wanting to do something, it's having the brain architecture to move from I should do this to actually doing it. And that process relies heavily on executive functioning. We know neurodivergent kids have a lot of struggles when it comes to executive functioning. We have tests that show that. So I want to first talk about the two types of motivation you probably heard about. The first one is intrinsic motivation, and that's when you do something because it's inherently interesting to you. It's enjoyable, you value it, it's meaningful to you. It comes from within you. For example, a child who loves dinosaurs might be intrinsically motivated to read every dinosaur book they can get a hold of. Now let's move to extrinsic motivation, is when you do something because of these external rewards. Like I will do homework to earn screen time, for example. If I put all of my clothes in the hamper, I put all my Legos in the bin, and I pull the cover over my bed, I earn chore money. For neurodivergent kids, especially those with ADHD, intrinsic motivation can be really tough because their brains require this higher level of interest, this newness, the novelty, immediate rewards to activate that system. Now, tasks that are boring, same old thing over and over again, repetitive, or delayed rewards often don't work well for them. And it's not for the lack of want. I want to be really clear about that. It's not that they're saying, I don't care and I don't want it. It's because it literally does not line up with their brain. That's often why these behavior plans will fail. You have to do this all through the week, and then you get access to this prize on Friday. No matter how much a student wants to get it, no matter how much they care, because of impulsivity or something else, they may lose that opportunity early in the week and never even get a chance to get close to that Friday reward. Now, I want to move on and talk about how motivation and executive functioning are just interconnected. Executive functions are those cognitive skills we need for a lot of things, like planning, starting a task, staying on task, that sustained attention, inhibition, stopping ourselves from doing something, that cognitive flexibility, emotional regulation, time perception, task shifting. There's so much to it. Motivation is the drive to actually do those tasks. And this is why it just breaks down for neurotypical kids. Because all those skills, the planning where to start, the prioritizing, the maintaining the attention through the boring parts, resisting all of those distractions, managing the frustration, sensing how long something's going to take, those are all really hard. And it's not, again, what a child doesn't want to do. Maybe you think they just don't want to do their homework. They don't care. It's really not that. Their brain literally can't organize the how to get started, how to keep going, how to complete it. So I want to go ahead and break down some of those specific executive functions that directly impact motivation. And I want to start with task initiation. This is so big for so many kids and teens that are neurodivergent. It's the ability to start. And when you struggle with this area, you might see the student staring at their homework for 45 minutes, knowing they need to start. Maybe you even remind them that they need to start, but they're unable to make their body move or take action towards that goal. And from the outside, it definitely looks like procrastination. It definitely does. And then you can see how often we get it wrong because we'll just blame them. You need to stop procrastinating. Really, it's an executive function. It's task initiation. On the outside, it looks like procrastination. In the inside, they're stuck. Now, here comes working memory. It helps us hold information in mind long enough to use it. I have not been formally tested, but I am very sure that mine is probably low. I have a hard time with this. So, if a child struggles with working memory, they are more likely to forget instructions, especially multi-step instructions. And you can just give that to them, you can say it, and then it's gone. Or they start the first step, and then they're almost through and forget what they're doing. This isn't defiance, it's their brain literally losing the information. If it was still in their brain, they would do it, but they don't even know what to do next. And if any of you listening that struggle with working memory like I do, it is incredibly frustrating. So then we get frustrated with ourselves, and then other people get frustrated with us. And I mentioned this before, as far as remembering phone numbers or names, that was always such an issue, and it still is for me. I have been accused of not caring. I remember I was younger. If you cared, you would remember my number. I'm like, no, I do care. I care a lot. I just can't. And I can't explain why. I didn't have a way to do it. So people assumed I did not care. And I think that's what happens as parents. We'll give instructions, or as teachers or therapists, and then it can be frustrating for us because we maybe automatically assume that the child doesn't care or just is choosing not to do it. But working memory, it's real, and it is not an on purpose thing, because I know that I would want to remember because my life would be easier. And I know the kids I work with feel the same way. Let's move on to planning and organization. It helps us figure out the steps, the materials, the time needed for the task. There's so many things in planning and organizing. And without these skills, even simple tasks feel overwhelming because they can't see and mentally map out what to do as far as the planning. It is really hard. And that is why I always like to use visual flows. So, for example, it is a visual of one step, and then it's the process going into the next, and then into the next. Because if I don't see it, I am likely to forget the beginning. Now there's inhibition, and this is a major contributor and why kids most often get in trouble at school, I think. It's that impulse control, the ability to pause before taking action, the ability to pause before speaking. It's also the executive functioning around resisting distractions and staying focused on what matters in that moment rather than what's interesting in that moment. So when there are struggles in inhibition, the motivation to complete boring or difficult tasks gets just completely derailed. And not just derailed, it's constantly getting derailed. So if a child sits down to do homework and their brain says, check your phone, this might be happening. What's going on? They're basically interrupted by things that are happening outside their body and also inside. So look at that thing on your desk. Think about what you're going to do later. Get a snack, get a drink. And then you think of a TV show. It's all these things are happening constantly. And it is incredibly difficult to resist distractions. Neurotypical kids can be distracted because they will be. They're going to be distracted and then they're going to be able to come back online. It's like they're offline for a second, but then they can come back online. Neurodivergent kids, they have much more going on in their brains to distract them. They're also more sensitive to things that are happening in the environment. And they are constantly being pulled by their thoughts in another direction. Yet we get upset with them because they're not doing exactly what we said to do, and they're not paying attention to exactly what they're supposed to be paying attention to. Every single distraction, and again, there's more for neurodivergent kids, those distractions, I think of them of not necessarily more or less important. So neurotypical kids have this lovely ability to be able to, again, go offline and then come right back on. They also have the ability to choose in the environment what is most important to pay attention to. They just do it naturally. But when you're neurodivergent and all of those stimuli are similar, it's not that one is more valuable than another. For instance, if a student is sitting in class and you're supposed to listen to what the teacher is saying, you're supposed to pay attention to the teacher. They may know that, they've been told that, but their brain isn't in line with that. So it's going to be extra difficult for them to get off task, back on, and stay on, despite being pulled away all the time. We need to appreciate how hard this actually is for them. Again, this isn't them being irresponsible or not caring. Their brain literally cannot filter out the more important things and the less important things. So they can then resist the pull of the less important things. Their brain just gets hijacked. It takes this massive amount of mental energy to constantly fight these impulses. So by the time a student has resisted, 147 distractions, they are cognitively exhausted, which makes the motivation to continue even more difficult. So that's why a lot of kids, when they come home, they're just like falling apart after school. So now I want to talk about sustained attention, and that's keeping us focused long enough to finish something, even when it's boring. Maintaining that attention on something that's low interest, it's just depleting the brain's resources really fast. Because again, you are trying to resist getting pulled in another direction. You're trying to figure out who can I hear and listen and what is supposed to have my attention in this moment while you're trying to process what you're being told by the person that you may not even remember because of the working memory. It's a lot. I want to move on to time blindness. This is just a huge executive functioning that most people don't associate with motivation, but it definitely is linked. So, time blindness is the inability to sense or accurately sense, I should say, the passage of time or estimate like how long something's going to take. And again, a huge barrier to motivation. So, when your child, your student, your client struggles with time blindness, tasks, especially the multi-step ones they've struggled with before or that require the sustained attention on something boring, that's why they feel like they will take forever. You may have heard this before. That's going to be forever. It's going to take forever. Or I'll never get to do it. They can't accurately gauge that this will be 10 minutes. This is only going to be 10 minutes and what 10 minutes feels like. Instead, their brain tells them this feels impossible. It's endless. I'll die before this gets done. And this isn't dramatic. This is real. So when you say, just go do your homework, their brain doesn't think, okay, this will take approximately 30 minutes and then I'll be done. No, their brain tells them this is a giant black hole of time that will never, ever end. And here's where parents and teachers often make it worse by saying things like, you've been complaining about doing it longer than it would have taken you to actually do it. That may have stung a little bit. And I'll tell you why it's hard for me, because I have said that. I have said that to my child. And I'm very happy that I'm not happy I said it, but I'm happy I caught it pretty quickly right after and apologized to him. Because I know why. I know it's about time blindness and executive functioning. Because it's a ridiculous statement when you think about it. Because you've been complaining about it longer than it would have taken you to actually do it. That statement requires the ability to sense time passing, which is exactly what time blindness prevents. So we're telling them this thing that they are not sensing. It doesn't make sense to them. It is not their experience. Neurodivergent kids genuinely cannot feel that 20 minutes of complaining is longer than 10 minutes of work. It all feels equally endless. Okay. This is why low interest tasks that require the sustained attention feel impossible to start. It's not that they don't want to do them. It's not that they're trying to give you a hard time. It may feel that way. Believe me, I've felt that myself. But their brain is sending panic signals that say, this is just it's gonna take too much energy. It's gonna be infinite time. Of course, it would feel impossible. And shout out to those listening that struggle with time blindness. Because like I said, I have always struggled with time blindness, always. And it would get me in trouble. And people didn't believe me when I didn't understand the passage of time. It always fascinated me, these neurotypical people running around that can sense the passage of time. They just know. That feels like 5 minutes, that's 5 minutes. Or somewhere around there. I always feel like I have so much more time to get other things done. So if I have maybe 5 minutes before I have to leave the house, I think that's plenty of time to vacuum the whole house and clean the bathroom. Which logically, I know that's not true, but that's what my brain tells me. Or I'm going to, I don't know, go meet someone for coffee or something and say we're going to meet at 2 o'clock and I'm excited to go. I want to go, I want to meet with this person and have coffee with them. I'm probably going to be 10 minutes late. Not because I don't care, but because of my sense of time. This is real. This is not something kids are making up. So, heart out to you, to any of you who struggle with it like I do. It is really hard. I want to move on to task shifting. That's the ability to smoothly transition from one activity to another. They're like shifting mental gears when plans change or when, you're stuck on a problem that you feel like has to be finished or this has to be done or you can't move on. When you struggle with tasks shifting, you may see your child, your student, your client get stuck and they have a really hard time stopping. Even when they know logically you've given them warnings that can help, but it's still even difficult then to move on to something else. It's not defiance, even though I know it can be frustrating. Their brain genuinely struggles to disengage from one thing and shift attention to another. Every transition, which we do tons of them, by the way, requires significant mental effort. So motivation to start something new, it's like blocked by their brain's difficulty of letting go of what came before. And when they do encounter problems in the task that they're doing, it's hard to flexibly shift strategies too. And that can be an issue for problem solving. So they may get stuck in one approach to the problem, even when it's not working, which kills motivation to keep going. Okay, emotional regulation. It helps us manage frustration, disappointment, and overwhelm. When there are differences, any challenge can contribute to a shutdown or meltdown, making it impossible to keep going on a task. It's this vicious cycle. So when executive functioning is a struggle, tasks feel overwhelming and lead to failure. Repeated failures damage the child's confidence and creates anxiety. Anxiety then further impairs the executive functioning. And all of this together crushes motivation. Now, there are some things that you need to think about. Like sometimes, like I said, if there is something interesting, they're really into it, then that can be exciting. That can be motivating. But really, I wanted to go through the executive function so we can see the big impact they have on motivation. Because motivation isn't just about, I don't want to do it or I don't care. It's actually not that. There's so much more. There is a big mental health connection here. The connection between executive functioning, motivation, and mental health. I want to specifically talk about anxiety and depression because neurodivergent kids and teens, they are at significantly higher risk for both, for anxiety and depression. And a huge part of that is this constant experience of struggling with tasks that seem just easier for everyone else, being blamed for the struggle, and then internalizing that message that something is wrong with them. When a child hears, you're lazy, unmotivated, irresponsible, when they're punished or shamed for struggling with executive functioning challenges that they cannot control, it doesn't make them try harder. It breaks them down. It makes them feel hopeless, worthless, and broken. Anxiety develops because they're constantly anticipating failure and criticism. They know it's coming because that is their experience. So they start avoiding tasks, not because they don't care, but because their nervous system has learned that trying leads to pain, trying leads to failure. No matter how I try, I'm going to be told that I'm not trying hard enough. And then depression develops, right? Because after enough experiences of why can't I just do this like other people, and internalizing this message of I'm not trying hard enough, they start to believe that they are lazy. They are a disappointment. There is something wrong with who they are. The tragedy is that these kids are trying, and they are trying so hard. But their executive functioning challenges make their efforts just invisible to everybody around them. I want to give two examples of what kind of quote unquote unmotivated looks like from the outside, and then what's really happening on the inside. Maya, she is an 8-year-old autistic girl. She's also an ADHDer. She loves art. She knows everything about marine biology and can tell you every detail about every species of shark, ones I've never even heard of. But at school, her teacher says, Maya, you are smart. You just need to follow the directions. You just don't ever follow my directions. So just get your math book out, turn to page 42, and complete problems 1 through 10. 5 minutes later, she is up and wandering around the classroom. The teacher assumes that she is not motivated to do her work. She's not trying hard enough. At home, her parents say, Maya, please go upstairs, brush your teeth, get your backpack, and get back down here because we're going to be late for school. 10 minutes later, Maya's in her room. She is playing with one of her dolphin stuffed animals. And her mom thinks, why won't she just listen? She doesn't care that we're going to be late. She doesn't care that she's making me late for work. But here's what's actually happening in her brain. Testing shows that Maya has lower working memory. And combine that with poor inhibition, that can be really hard. So when her teacher gives her these 3-step directions or whatever, by the time Maya walks to her desk, she has forgotten step 2 and probably 3. She's standing there, she's completely confused, and she's anxious because she sees everyone knowing what to do. She knows she's supposed to know what to do. She's supposed to do something, but she can't remember. As she's trying to remember, she notices this cool pencil case that her friend Sarah has across the room. And her brain is saying, look at that. That is so cool. I wish I had that. That inhibition, it means that she can't resist. So she goes over there to look, and then she sees the class hamster, and nothing's better than that. She thinks, I got to go pet that hamster. And so she does. Now she's even further from remembering that original task. So she walks around trying to look at what everyone else is doing, trying to look at their papers, hoping she's going to remember what to do. She's trying to figure out what to do, but she does not want to ask for help because the last time she asked, her teacher sighed, rolled her eyes, and said, I already told you what to do. You should have listened the first time. When her mom gives her multiple directions, go upstairs, she does do that. She does that part. But then once she gets upstairs, the other steps have just fallen. I think of this as the words you're trying to hold in your brain, literally the letters fall down. She sees her stuffed animal, seeking some relief from the anxiety, probably. And she's excited to see her dolphin. So she's hugging her dolphin and she is playing with it. So again, that inhibition, it means that she really has a hard time resisting the pull of something else, resisting the pull of something interesting, resisting the pull of something comforting, resisting the pull of something familiar. Her brain has now engaged with that stuffed animal and shifting away from that to this concept of getting ready without an understanding of time, of being late, feels impossible without support. Maya isn't unmotivated. She's overwhelmed, she's anxious, and working with a working memory that struggles to keep multiple pieces of information in at once. This inhibition system that struggles to filter out these distractions, and a brain that struggles to shift between activities. It is a very different way to look at it. One way is Maya, she's irresponsible. She doesn't care. She's not motivated. She doesn't care that she's making everyone late. Then there's the Maya who loses information, not because she wants to, because this is what happens. Then she gets distracted and she gets pulled into something else. And then she loses track of time. I want all of us to think about what we would say to her. It's easy to assume and blame, but that's not going to help Maya. It's only going to cause more issues with anxiety and depression for her. Now I want to talk about a teen boy named Jordan, ADHDer. And Jordan's parents say he's really lazy. He can spend 6 hours playing video games, but he can't spend 30 minutes on homework. He just does not care about school. And Jordan's teachers say Jordan, he's smart, but he's irresponsible. He never turns in assignments on time. Sometimes even forgets to put his name on them. He clearly is not motivated to succeed. Jordan's mom frequently says with frustration, Jordan, you've spent 20 minutes complaining about this essay. You could have had it almost done by now. You're wasting more time arguing with me about it than it would take to just do it. It's understandable the frustration that the teacher has, that Jordan's parents have. But that's why it's so important for us to look at this differently, because what is actually happening inside Jordan's brain is not laziness. Jordan has slower processing speed. We can see that with testing. So combined with this big time blindness and difficulty with inhibition, right? So this makes things really hard for him. And when he sits down to, let's say, write that essay, his brain needs more time to understand what the prompt is actually asking, which of course can be hard to start, right? If you're not sure what it's asking. His brain also needs more time to just recall the information that he learned in class. His brain needs more time to organize his thoughts into this sequence. and then find the right words to express his ideas. That's also really hard. What might take a neurotypical student 45 minutes can take Jordan 3 hours. And that's if he can maintain that focus, which his ADHD brain makes incredibly difficult for boring tasks. Here's the critical part about time blindness in this situation. Jordan cannot sense that the essay will, I don't want to say take about an hour. His brain has no internal clock. So when he looks at that assignment, especially ones like this that he struggled with before, his brain just sends him this signal. This will take forever. It is endless. This will consume your entire night and maybe the rest of your life. It sounds dramatic, but it actually does feel that way. Take it from me. I experienced this myself. So when his mom says, "You've been complaining for this long," Jordan genuinely cannot feel the difference between that complaining and what he imagines will be hours or eternity of painful work. Because time doesn't feel linear or measurable to him. The complaining and the essay both feel like forever. He's not being manipulative. He literally cannot sense time passing in a way that would make that comparison even make sense to him. In that struggle with inhibition, it makes it even harder. So he sits down to start this essay. His phone is buzzing. He can't not look. He's got to look. He's got to look. So he looks. Now he's on social media. 20 minutes pass, but it feels like 3. He tells himself to close the phone. I got to close this phone. I got to start writing. I got to start writing. I got to start writing. So he starts writing. He types one sentence and his brain says, "Check if anyone responded to your comment." It's like this massive magnet. It's hard to resist distractions. I know I'm using the phone in this situation, but it could be for anything, right? His mom walks by and says, "Are you still not working?" Jordan feels awful. He knows he should be working. And again, there's the shoulds. We should all the time to ourselves, and shoulds only create more shame. But his brain keeps hijacking his attention. He can't sense time passing because that essay feels impossible and overwhelming. So Jordan looks at the assignment and his brain immediately calculates, this is going to take forever. It's going to be exhausting. I'm probably going to do it wrong anyway. No matter what I do, I seem to get these things wrong. I think I know what to do, but then when the paper's graded, I did it wrong. Everyone else is going to finish before me. I'm always the last one to do it. Then I'm just going to feel stupid again. The anxiety this creates literally shuts down his prefrontal cortex, the part of his brain responsible for all that executive functioning. And so now he can't even start. He really can't even start. When he plays video games, though, his brain gets this immediate feedback. It is constantly new stuff, and there are clear rewards, clear time markers through levels and achievements. Now, the game also holds his attention in a way that minimizes the need for inhibition because it's constantly stimulating. It's not that he doesn't want to do homework. Like, I don't want to do homework and I'm purposely not. His brain simply does not have the neurochemical fuel, the processing speed, the impulse control, or the time perception to make it doable. Jordan isn't lazy or irresponsible. He's exhausted, anxious about these repeated failures, working with a brain that processes information more slowly than the pace the school demands. Literally unable to sense how long tasks will actually take, and then fighting this constant battle against distractions. His brain cannot resist, which makes every challenging task feel infinite and impossible for him. So, again, how are we going to look at Jordan? Are we going to make assumptions about him? He's not trying hard enough, he's lazy. Or are we going to step back and look at all of the information? And that brings me to those damaging labels and assumptions that we make. This language is name calling, and we do it. I've done it, and I know how damaging it is. I have looked at my kid who is so stressed, and I said, you need to try harder. It breaks my heart, and I am horrified that I said that. But I was frustrated, and I assumed, and I was wrong. I know the damage of these labels because I experienced it. And you may have heard me talk before, but the word lazy is so distressing to me because I heard that all the time. Stop being so lazy, Holly. And I would try and I would try and I would try and I would try, and I was still lazy. We need to be really careful about the words we use to our kids, to our students, to ourselves. Because what these kids are hearing is, you're so lazy. How are you ever going to take care of yourself? You're just not trying hard enough. You should be able to do this. You're being irresponsible. You don't care about anything. Just focus. You're unmotivated. You've been complaining. Again, here it is. You've been complaining about it longer than it would have taken you to do it. Stop making such a big deal out of everything. Why can't you just get it done and get it over with? Stop getting distracted by everything. You're not even trying to pay attention. Every single one of these statements is an assumption about a child's character rather than an understanding of their neurology. And here's what these statements do. Okay, it takes a child who is already struggling, already feeling like a failure, already confused about why all these things are happening around them. Why are people so mad at them when they're trying the best they can? Why does everything look so easy for other people? Why do things have to be so hard for them? And then that confirms their fear, right? That something is wrong with who they are. These labels, these statements, they don't motivate change. They just create shame. And shame is the enemy of motivation. You will not motivate a child or teen by saying these things to them. These statements are the enemy of learning. Why would you even try to learn anything, right? I mean, you're told all the time you're doing everything wrong. Why would you want to do something that's going to put you in a position to get more wrong? Shame is also the enemy of mental health because kids internalize these messages, right? They stop trying because they've learned that trying just leads to failure and criticism, right? They start believing I'm just bad at everything. There's just no point to even try. This is how that anxiety and depression just take root. This is how we lose kids. I have seen more suicidal ideation and harm in 2025 than the history of my 28 years working with neurodivergent kids and teens. I am so thankful that you're listening to this today because we have taught them, we didn't mean to, but we have taught them not to care because if they care, it's just too painful because they're going to fail anyway. So they may even tell you, I don't care. And they may start not to care because they don't feel like they're good at anything. So I want to walk you through 13 ways to help. I talked about all the reasons why we get the understanding of motivation wrong and why this looks so different for neurodivergent kids. But then the good news, as I try to get it together here, is that there are things that we can do. We can do things differently. We can do things different starting today. Number one, probably not surprising, but we need to stop using these harmful labels. Stop using the harmful statements. We stop calling them lazy. We stop calling them unmotivated or irresponsible. We stop blaming them for struggles that are neurological and not based on their character at all. That's what they need. On to number two. Get curious instead of critical. Easier said than done, but we all can continue working on this. So instead of assuming laziness, get curious about what actually is going on. Get curious about what is hard. And when I say instead of assuming laziness, I'm not saying you're not allowed to have that thought. We're all human. You may just get better at catching it before you say things out loud. We're always mad at kids for saying rude things or disrespectful things, but we're doing the same thing when those things come out of our mouths to our kids, the kids that need our help the most, right? So again, catch that thought before it comes out of your mouth. When we're curious about what is making something hard, it can open up better ways of teaching and understanding. So you can ask, what part of this math problem feels the hardest for you? Or what is hard about even getting started? Does this feel like it's going to take a long time? Your brain is constantly telling you things all the time. Your brain's going to tell you things that distract you, things around you are going to be distracting. So, what things pull your attention away most when you're trying to get work done? If we had a magic wand, what could make this easier? So I think about garbage a lot, right? I know that sounds weird, but when you think about how you break down tasks, I think that's a nice one to refer back to is taking out the garbage. My 16-year-old is not terribly interested in taking out the garbage. He knows how to do the task, but that doesn't mean it's easy for him to start. Often, what I'll do if the garbage needs taken out and I'm in the middle of doing something, I will ask him, do you want me to tie the garbage for you? Because fine motor skills are tough. And then you can take it out, or you can tie it and I'll take it out. What do you think? Usually he'll ask me to take it out and tie it because that's the hardest part for him. And sometimes, again, kids can tell you, and sometimes they can't. But the question itself is really powerful. You're showing them, I believe you that this is hard for you. I believe you, and I want to figure out how I can help. Pointing to what can be difficult instead of saying it. There's so many cool ways, and we're going to get into that in a minute. 3, think visually how to break those tasks down. This is gold because most tasks we ask kids to do are actually a lot of steps. If you do a task analysis, I'm going to nerd out for a second on even toothbrushing, there are so many steps. And I think we forget, right? As adults, we've done this so many times. Doing laundry, all the steps of taking the laundry hamper and walking it to the laundry room and leaving it there instead of like getting pulled into doing something else, even though that happens sometimes. We do things and we don't even think about it because we've done them so many times. We forget. So again, with trash, because I think about trash a lot as far as the task analysis of it, first you have to notice it's full. That's not even easy. Noticing the trash is full. What does that look like? And then remember, you're supposed to take it out. This is all without prompting. Okay. Didn't you see that the trash was full? Probably not. Because your brain is interrupting itself constantly. Even if you noticed it, it's probably gone. So then, oh, yep, I am supposed to take that out for my mom. She asked me. Okay. So now I have to take the bag out and tie it. I've got to tie that bag, make sure it's completely closed. And then I've got to walk it out to the front door. I've got to open that door. I've got to walk through. I've got to turn around and shut the door because if I don't, the dogs are going to run out. Then I've got to walk around to the side of the house. Then I've got to figure out which bin does it go in. Is it recycling versus the other trash bin? They're different colors. Then you got to pick it up and put it in there. And then remember to shut the top. Okay. And then you walk back, hopefully not distracted by the phone. You end up staying out there. You got to walk back, open the door, walk in, shut the door, and then go figure out where the new trash bag is. You got to go find where it is. Sometimes it's under the sink. You have to go get that. And then you have to walk to the trash can and then you have to open up the bag and you have to make sure that it's folded over on the sides and positioned correctly. If not, you're going to put food inside of the can instead of inside the bag, right? This sounds like it wouldn't be a big deal, but it actually is. Something that I have trouble remembering is putting the new bag in. I can get frustrated. I'll go to throw something away and there's no new bag in the garbage can. Like, what? And then I realize I'm the one that forgot it. For a child or teen that struggles with working memory, struggles with task initiation, slower processing speed, poor inhibition, timeline, as each step is a place where you can get stuck, get distracted, and completely lose track. And if they struggle with task shifting, So moving from whatever they're doing to this task and then between each step, because that's also a shift. All of this requires this tremendous effort. And I am only talking about taking out the trash. Making it visual. It is incredibly powerful when you can just do a simple checklist or a picture sequence. And you can do this easily in Canva for free. I'll make sure to have that link below. And you can go through it together. If you go through a task together, you can make sure that you're not missing any steps. Then what's cool about it is you can figure out like which one is the hardest for you, do you think? Which one's kind of medium? Which one is easy? What's the easiest part for you? What's really great about that is maybe sometimes that's the step they're going to do. You do the rest and they do the easy one because you've got to start somewhere. This gives you information about where the actual breakdown is happening. And maybe they could do everything except step one. That's noticing the trash is full. That's not laziness. It's not. You can help by setting a reminder or making it more visually obvious. Like I said, visuals are so incredibly important, especially if it's hard to keep information in mind. Then you have to externalize the information, just like you have to externalize time, which brings us to 4, time blindness. We need to externalize that time, and a great way to do this is using a visual timer. And you guys know I talk about it all the time. I'm obsessed with the time timer because numbers can get all jumbled. Your brain could easily get pulled. When you move that timer and you see the red, and the red disappears as time goes by, it makes understanding time possible. This helps their brain see that time is moving, not never, forever, and always. And again, break tasks into time chunks. I recently watched this YouTube video that I thought was really powerful. It was a person, maybe he'll come on the podcast, talking about how he was constantly pulled away. His brain was pulled away constantly to different things. And it was incredibly difficult for him to do schoolwork. But when he broke it down with clear ends, that made it doable for him. He did work or anything really, tasks in 10-minute chunks. That's what worked best for him. You can set a timer, and when it goes off, you can stop and take that break, like no matter where you are. If you think, oh no, that would not work, we would never get anything done, you would be amazed. Even if you did work for 5 minutes, if you knew what you were going to do for that 5 minutes, you knew it was going to be over, and then you took a break for 5 minutes, you would actually get more done because then it became doable. What's really cool too is estimating time together and then check it, and it's without judgment. So how long do you think this is going to take? Okay. After they answer, you can say, let's time it and see. You're gathering information. It's not that you're blaming and shaming. You're figuring it out together. So this can over time help build more of this internal sense of time. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to sense it like a neurotypical person does, but it can help be more aware of time. And perhaps maybe I'm going to estimate it and see how long this takes. It took me this long last time. So now I have a better idea. Those times can even be written down. Sometimes it'll be a little longer, sometimes it'll be less, but it's definitely a more positive way to help people with time blindness. Again, don't shame them when their estimate is way off. Just treat it like information. Oh, that's interesting. So your brain thought it would be 5 minutes, but it actually took 10 minutes. So that's like really good to know. Let's go ahead and write that down. I know I've said it before, but don't say you've been complaining longer than it would have taken you to do it. Because that statement requires time perception that they don't even have. So again, that doesn't even make sense to say. You might want to think instead, I can see this feels really hard to start. So would you like me to help you start? Would that be helpful? Okay, so let's set a timer for 10 minutes and then just start that there. You might be surprised about how much you can get done in that amount of time. I thought it was really cool. I was talking to my youngest son, and he was talking to me about time, and we were talking about the idea of that persistence and staying with it. And he said that sometimes it is really hard to start depending on what it is and what's going on and how drained he is. But also, he said sometimes it actually is in the middle. When he starts things, sometimes he feels like he can't finish and he gets about halfway through and it feels impossible. And that was such good information to know that he was thinking about it. And that way I can step up and support him in a better way. Now on to 5. Supporting inhibition and reducing distractions. This is hard, especially because distractions are even inside of your brain. If you have a child, student, or client that struggles with inhibition, it's important to create an environment that reduces the number of things that are competing for their attention. And that's not always easy to do, but we can do a better job than the way it is at the moment if we're finding that it's difficult. So removing the distractions before they start. And that might look like putting the phone in another room. Working at a clear desk or table can be helpful, or in a beanbag if that's more comfortable for them. Maybe it's harder for them to do work in their bedroom because they're surrounded by their most interesting things. Another thing I want to mention about reducing distractions and supporting inhibition is the use of body doubling. I am a massive fan of body doubling. I wish that I knew about this before. When you are with someone, you become this anchor for each other, and it helps resist the pull of the distractions. Now, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be distracted. That's not true. It's not magical, but it can really help the pull of them. When you're right next to them, they are more likely to stay on task. And you can work on your own task next to them. We always have things to do. In-person body doubling, I find, is the best. If you break down the task, the activity, in smaller chunks, more doable chunks, and you use a visual timer, and you're next to someone and you say what you're going to work on for this amount of time. Literally, you write it in, or you can write it in for them. In this 10 minutes, I am going to work on. It's there, it is visual, it's this beautiful external reminder of what you are saying that you are going to do in the next time chunk. You see the time on the visual timer. You can refer back to what you said you're going to work on because it's written, and you have someone next to you. It's lovely. Now, it's not always easy for body doubling because, again, everyone is so busy. Now, if you're 18 or older, I highly recommend Flown. That's Flown, and I'll make sure that I have the link below. I have a subscription to Flown, and the Flown sessions that I like best are the ones that have those small chunks. Some of them will say deep work for 30 minutes and then set your intention. Some of them you set your intention verbally, and some you type it in the chat. The ones I like the best and find most helpful is when it is a small chunk, like 10 minutes. And then after that 10 minutes, because everybody is online, you get to see them because your camera's on. You're all body doubling for each other. At the end of that 10 minutes, you unmute and then you say how much you got done, what your intention was, and if something was getting in the way, like pulling you away from what you wanted to do. It is such a lovely and accepting and beautiful way to help you stay on task because there's no shame there. I will say that, like when it's my turn to say, if I got what I wanted to do done in that 10 minutes, I feel okay of saying, you know what, I was really pulled away. My brain was telling me all kinds of things. But now I am back on track. I've rewritten what I am going to do, my intention. I'm going to set my timer. And this is what I plan on working on. You're declaring it to these other people. There's this accountability that's mixed in, which is so great. Now, I did notice, and I'll make sure that I put a link below for OutSchool, because the last time I looked, OutSchool was starting to do virtual body doubling, which I think is fantastic. And of course, you could be younger and do that. There is also something I learned about too. It is a way to, I believe, only keep you on one or two landing pages for a certain amount of time. And if I can find that note in my series of notes, of papers, of Post-its, and everything else, I am absolutely going to have that down there for you because that's something that I've been wanting to do. I just kept forgetting. Something else that's important in number 5 is normalizing the struggle. So you can say, oh, your brain is going to tell you 52 things to do about other things while you're working on this. That's normal for your brain. It happens. It's going to get pulled away. But I want you to just notice it and I want you to come back. Okay, so when your brain is pulled away, that does not mean you're doing something wrong. There's nothing wrong with you. You've just got a really busy brain, and this is going to be a little harder. I feel like it can be really helpful for when I'm working with my clients is to actually have a tangible item. This makes it even more lovely because it's a visual. So I have talked about air dry clay. I love it. My clients love it. It's a great fidget. And I like to make these cubes. I don't know if I've ever told anybody this before, but I like to make cubes out of it. I like make these little cubes. And those just happen to be the things that I have around on my desk. So I'll use those. And when I'm working with a client, we'll talk about, oh, my brain just got pulled. I'm going to go ahead and pick up that cube and I'm going to set it right here. I'm not going to argue with it. I'm not going to run after it. I'm just going to set it right here. And then I'm going to read what I'm working on and I'm going to get back to it. So when you're not shaming and when you're not saying your brain is wrong, you're just saying this is something that's going to happen. It does happen. So we just can come up with some ideas about how to notice it. And that could be checking in with ourselves. That could be, I'm sitting next to you doing body doubling. We can check in to see where we're at, but also just noticing that it came in. So now I'm going to recognize it, not going to fight it, not going to run after it. I'm just going to set it aside. And then I'll get back to what I originally wanted to do. I want to chat about building those planned breaks. I know I mentioned this earlier. I think we have this sort of normal fear, right? If you take too many breaks, you'll never get it. Well, it depends. So instead of judging it, we'll look at how many breaks are they taking. Say it's a 60-minute class and they are out of class for, I don't know, say 35 minutes. Of course, we need to find out what is happening in that class that needs to be different for this student. What is it about the academic work? What is it about the presentation of it? What is it about the environment? What is it about the peers? There's so many different things that we need to consider. But expecting a student to stay in class for 50 minutes or 55 minutes and have a 5-minute break is just not going to work. It just doesn't even make sense. They are not going to go from being out of the class the majority of the time to automatically being in class for the majority of time. So when you are planning those breaks, you have to consider so many different things. Breaks are not bad. They're not. We just have to be really thoughtful in our approach. The other part of this too is don't blame them for getting distracted. The thought that might come up for us is, why can't you just focus? Just get this done so we can get it over with. Instead, it's, I noticed you got pulled away there. I'm wondering what your brain just told you. We can get to know what distracts them more. We can know what gets their focus more than other things. And that is really valuable information. All right, number 6 way to help, supporting that task initiation and task shifting. If a child struggles with the task initiation, that getting stuck, right? Starting the task for them or with them can make a massive difference. Because say an upset parent is yelling at a child with executive functioning, difference is saying, I know you know how to do this. You've done it before. You're acting like you don't know how to do it. Just get it done and get it over with. And they are just stuck. When we are really thoughtful about the way we look at it, they may know all the steps, but it's the starting that's hard. So what a different interaction, right? A parent yelling at their child, just get it done, hurry up, stop procrastinating, versus, do you want me to do the first part for you? Or do you want me to do it with you? There's no yelling there. And the child is supported. Another way, again, under step 6, is that task shifting. We have to understand how important this is. And I mentioned body doubling because just someone's presence, if they are a safe person and if they're being supportive, can be really helpful. Instead of saying, go clean your room, which we know doesn't often work, we could say, let's start this together. Do you want to put your clothes in the hamper, or would you rather put the books on the shelf? I can do which one that you don't want to do. Or make it even smaller, right? Maybe it's hand me 2 things off the floor and that's it. That's all you have to do. I'm going to put them away. That's the start of something better. Because go clean your room, it's not going to work. I don't even know what go clean your room is. I don't even know what that means. I used to hate being told that when I was a kid. It would confuse me because I would have this idea in my head about what that meant. And then I'd be proud of myself for half a second. And I'd think I did a good job. I worked really hard. Then they would say, this is a mess. It doesn't look like you've done anything. When you can start in a supportive way and showing that you're a safe person, you will get farther in all kinds of ways. You are going to have a better relationship with that child. You are going to understand what's easier, what's harder for them. They're going to feel like they can tell you. They're going to feel safe telling you things. For those task shifting challenges, giving advanced notice isn't always a super game changer, but is important. In 5 minutes, we're going to need to stop playing and start dinner. And then at another 2 minutes, then one more minute. This is nice when you have that visual timer. This gives their brain kind of time to start that mental process of disengaging. You can also make transitions easier by connecting activities. For instance, after you finish this level on this game, let's go ahead and pause the game and head to the kitchen together. And then we can talk about the Legos that you just built while we're making dinner. So the way you can flow and smoothly transition, it's a lovely thing because success builds momentum, and momentum builds confidence, and confidence eventually builds more independence, that intrinsic motivation. Now on to 7, providing the choice and control. Autonomy. You may have heard of PDA. Okay, just keep that in mind. Autonomy is incredibly powerful. It is one of the most powerful motivators for humans, especially neurodivergent kids and teens. So instead of, you need to do your homework right now, it could be, oh, let's see, it looks like you've got this math assignment and this English assignment. Which one feels easier for you to start? Or which one do you want to start with first? I can help you break that down. Instead of go clean that kitchen, it's a mess. Try, would you rather load the dishwasher or wipe the counter? You decide. It's completely up to you. Choice doesn't mean no expectations. We need to remember that. It doesn't. It means giving control over the how, over how the expectation gets met, which reduces anxiety, which reduces resistance. It is this treasure trove of information. If they're always picking wipe the counters, I am wondering what's happening with the dishwasher. What is hard about it? Is it the sound of the dishes clanging? Is it just gross? Is it a sensory thing where there's food on it and you don't want to touch it? Again, lots of great information here when you provide choice. On to 8, stay with them. For some kids, especially when tasks are new or challenging, or there are a lot of steps, the most helpful thing you can do is stay with them. And I'm not talking about giving them the eyeball treatment. That's what my mom used to call it. I'm not talking about hovering or criticizing or rolling your eyes or sighing. Just being present is that supportive anchor. It actually helps with sustained attention. Your presence can help them stay on track. You can jump into help. Because if you're not with them and this is a difficult thing you're asking them to do, they're going to be more likely to be pulled into something else. And then you'll be mad when they're off track. Again, I'm not criticizing because I have done the same thing. That's why I practice every single day, reminding myself all the time, how do I want to show up? What kind of relationship do I want to have with my kid? I want to be an effective supporter. Your presence helps with Sorry, that's my dog, Max. Emotional regulation. If you are calm, they are more likely to stay regulated. I know it's not easy. It's not. But if we are mad at them, they are not going to be calm. And then the task does not get done and everyone's upset. Staying with them, again, helps with time. Whoa, you've already gotten the second step done. That's great. Okay, let's move on to step 3. Where are we on our checklist? That is so much different than that would have only taken you a second. Why didn't you just get it done? Now it's going to even be later. Staying with them when you are being supportive also can help with their mental health and their confidence. They're not alone in the struggle because you are a safe person with them. So, tip 9, model that process. I cannot tell you how powerful this is. Don't just tell them what to do with your words. Show them. Do it alongside them. Narrate your own thinking. I was working with a parent the other day, and it was so great. This beautiful situation where their child was struggling with something. And the parent was telling their child, just do it this way, just do it this way, and was telling them verbally. I walked over and I showed them and told them at the same time how to do it. And then the child was instantly able to do it. It was really exciting to see how the parent and the child were working together. Sometimes we tell kids over and over in the same way to do something, and then we're frustrated because they didn't do it or they couldn't figure out maybe what we were saying. When you show the how, they feel so much better. On to tip 10. Offer different ways to communicate. It doesn't matter how many words someone knows. In the moment that they're upset, you can offer some different alternatives, right? Let me know if any part of this is confusing. As soon as you don't know what I mean, just put your finger up. Do you want to type instead of talk? Some kids, they feel more comfortable texting to their parents, and that's okay. When I'm working on identifying feelings or emotions, that is individualized to each person I work with because I'm not going to tell them they feel a certain way. It has to work for them. I take those words, they'll put an image that matches that they pick out, and then they can point to it, even when words are hard. My brain is telling me a story about, and they can finish the sentence. If something is bothering them, maybe a peer was saying nasty things to them at school that morning, and they weren't telling you until you provided that starter sentence. Meeting them where they are reduces that frustration, and it really helps us understand what support do they actually need, what is happening for them. Now for 11. We want to celebrate effort, not just completion. This is so important. Let's shift our focus from outcome to the process. You worked on that for 10 minutes, even though it was hard. That was amazing. How did you do that? That was hard and you did it anyway. I noticed you asked for help instead of stopping. You're helping me know where I need to be more supportive. You didn't finish, but you started. And starting is really hard. I think it's great that you did that. You stopped playing when I asked, even though that was really hard for you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. You worked on this even though your brain told you that it would never end. I saw you get distracted and bring yourself back. That is your brain catching those distractions even faster. This builds that intrinsic motivation I was talking about earlier by connecting effort with value, regardless of whatever the outcome is. It teaches that trying is safe, trying matters, that struggle is part of learning. Things are going to be hard, and that their worth is not dependent on some perfect performance. Now moving on to 12. I'm calling it take care of the basics, not because this is basic, and you'll see what I mean here in a second. Executive functioning and motivation depend on these basic needs. They stack on top of them. When a child, a teen, is not getting enough sleep, executive functioning and motivation are going to be impacted, right? And that makes sense. If they aren't eating regularly, or they're not eating any nutritious foods, that also can impact those things. If they're not getting enough movement, if they're having to sit for a long period of time, if they don't feel emotionally safe or connected. So when any of these are compromised, the cognitive function can go down, stopping themselves from doing things that could get them in trouble, that type of thing. And time perception can get even harder because you can't executive function your way out of exhaustion, hunger, or chronic stress. I know because I've tried it. It doesn't work, especially if you already have issues with executive function. It is not lost on me that neurodivergent kids and teens have more problems with sleep. They do. Also with foods. So anything, trying something new is a huge accomplishment. Getting 5 or 10 minutes extra sleep a few nights a week is a win. Feeling more emotionally safe and connected, also a win. When I say the basics, I know these things aren't easy, but any step forward is progress. Number 13, last but certainly not least. This is much longer than my typical episodes, and I want to celebrate you for hanging in there with me. If you are with me right now, that tells me that you are ready for something different. You want to show up differently, that you want to feel good about how you show up for the neurodivergent kid in your life. I want to celebrate you. That is number 13. Again, I know this is hard. I know this is hard because I wear those hats. The parent hat, the psychologist hat. This isn't easy. Again, I celebrate you being here with me right in this moment. As we wrap up, here's what I want you to remember. They're working with a brain that processes differently. And when we blame them for that difference, we don't help them grow. We teach them to hate themselves. I used to hate myself. And I don't want that for them. And I know you don't either. When we understand what's really happening for them, when we see a neurological difference rather than this character flaw, really everything changes. We stop fighting against them and we start working with them. We start walking alongside them. We stop demanding they change their brain, which isn't even possible, right? And we start changing how we teach, how we support, and how we connect with them. We give them what they actually need, not criticism and blame, but compassion, curiosity, structure, and this message that you are not broken. You are not less than other people, because they are exactly who they're supposed to be, and we'll help them build the skills and supports that they need. Because that's what neurodiversity affirming support looks like. It's not about fixing them. It's about supporting them in the way they need it. Again, thank you for sticking with me and listening. If today's episode was helpful for you, please share it with someone. If you know a parent, an educator, or a therapist that you think would find it helpful, just let them know about it, and maybe they'll take a listen themselves. Go on down to the show notes. I'm going to have lots of goodness for you down there. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care. If you found this podcast helpful, I greatly appreciate it if you could take a second to give it a 5-star review. With your positive feedback, I can continue bringing you free, valuable information. As an extra thanks to you for sticking around, there are special gifts waiting for you in the show notes. You'll find links to free resources on supporting neurodivergent kids and teens with social interaction, emotional regulation, and more. So come on down to the show notes and get your free resources. Take care, and I look forward to seeing you next time.
All content provided is protected under applicable copyright, patent, trademark, and other proprietary rights. All content is provided for informational and educational purposes only. No content is intended to be a substitute for professional medical or psychological diagnosis, advice, or treatment. Information provided does not create an agreement for service between Holly Blanc Moses Crossvine Clinical Group, the interviewee, Holly Blanc Moses LLC, and the recipient. Consult your physician regarding the applicability of any opinions or recommendations with respect to your symptoms or medical condition or the symptoms or medical condition of your family member. Children or adults who show signs of dangerous behavior toward themselves and/or others should be placed immediately under the care of a qualified professional.